My parents abandoned me to build their perfect families. Years later, they tried to reconnect, but my response left them speechless. At 15, life was supposed to be about exploring friendships, discovering passions, and making mistakes with the safety net of parental guidance. Instead, my world became a juggling act of two households, each steeped in its own new family drama, neither with room for me. It wasn't just that my parents had remarried, it was that, in their new lives, they had inadvertently, or perhaps conveniently, reshuffled their priorities to exclude me. My father had married Clara, the woman he had an affair with during his marriage to my mother. She brought her son Jacob into the marriage, and soon after, they had Mia, my half-sister. Dad's new family seemed to consume all of his energy and attention. I had hoped to be a big sister that Mia could look up to and maybe even a friend to Jacob, but at every turn I was reminded, subtly yet unmistakably, that I was an outsider. The pictures on the mantel, the family calendars marked with their activities, none included me unless it was a reminder for my weekend visits, which they seemed to dread. During these visits I often felt more like a guest than a daughter. Conversations at the dinner table flowed around me, about schools I didn't attend and people I didn't know. When I tried to contribute, sharing stories of my own experiences, I was met with distracted nods or polite smiles before the focus shifted back to Clara's children and their lives. It was as though I was a mild inconvenience, disrupting the well-oiled routine of their household. My mother's house wasn't much better. She had remarried Mark, a man who was always kind to me but distant, as if he were unsure of his role in my life. Together they had Emily, and it became painfully clear that she was the center of their world. My visits there were marked by a palpable sense of displacement. Toys and baby gear filled the living room. Spaces that used to be mine for homework or watching TV now catered to toddler needs. I tried to engage, to be the helpful older sister, but most times, I just ended up feeling more in the way than useful. "What about going to the park this weekend?" I once suggested, hoping for some family bonding time. "We actually planned a picnic with Emily's playgroup this Saturday," my mother replied, her voice tinged with an apology that didn't quite reach her eyes. "But we'll try to do something together soon, okay?" Soon never seemed to come, and promises like these often evaporated into thin air, lost amid diaper changes and playdates that didn't include me. My room at her house, once a sanctuary filled with my posters and books, had slowly turned into a storage space for Emily's things as she outgrew them. It wasn't just the lack of space or time. It was the constant reminders that I didn't belong. At both houses, there were barely any pictures of me on the walls. They had big portraits of my siblings and themselves together, but almost none of mine. It was like I didn't exist in their new family narratives. My parents would fight over who had to keep me longer, not in the sense of wanting to spend time with me, but more like, "I took her last weekend, it's your turn." My father and Clara would schedule fun activities, like trips to the park, or bigger vacations specifically for the weeks when my mother had me, ensuring I'd miss out. My mother and Mark would often leave me alone at home so they could go out with Emily. Every chance they got, they'd ship me off to my grandparents or my Aunt Lucy's with some flimsy excuse, then do family stuff without me. They even forgot my birthday more than once, and when they did remember, they'd give me a $10 Starbucks gift card, despite knowing I don't like Starbucks. The message was clear: I was an afterthought, a burden they didn't know how to handle. Feeling increasingly alienated, I spent more and more time alone, retreating into books and writing journals. I wrote stories where I was the hero, the cherished daughter, or the adventurer on epic quests, anything that took me away from the reality of my situation. These writings became my escape, a way to live 1,000 lives in worlds where I mattered. As summer approached, I looked forward to spending time at my grandparents' house. Grandma always had a way of making me feel loved and seen. She'd listen to my stories, teach me recipes, and talk to me about her own life with a genuineness that was sorely missing in my interactions with my parents. But even that refuge was tainted when my father announced they were planning a 2-week vacation to Europe. Just him, Clara, Jacob, and Mia. The trip fell during my scheduled time with them. When I asked if I was going, my father hesitated, his eyes darting away before meeting mine. "We thought you'd enjoy some time at your grandparents'. We'll call every day, and we'll plan something special when we get back," he promised, though the hollowness in his words echoed in my chest. They did go to Europe, and the daily calls were brief check-ins, often filled with the noise of their excitement and adventures. I tried to be happy for Mia, who chirped endlessly about castles and gelato, but each call felt like a blade twisting deeper into the wound of exclusion. My mother, on the other hand, was overwhelmed with her work and Emily. Calls to her were equally sporadic and rushed. "Mom, can we talk? I'm feeling really left out," I tried once, hoping to bridge the gap. "Oh, honey, it's just a busy time right now. Emily's teething and you know how that goes. We'll talk soon, I promise. Love you." The promises became as empty as the looks of sympathy from friends who noticed my growing withdrawal and sadness. "It's like they don't really see me anymore," I confided in my best friend Sarah, one evening at her house, where her parents laughed and cooked together in the kitchen. A stark contrast to my own life. Sarah hugged me tightly, her words a soft whisper. "You deserve better. You know you're worth more than being an afterthought." It was during one particularly lonely night at my grandparents' house that summer when the full weight of my situation settled on my shoulders. I realized that if I continued to wait for my parents to notice me, to value me as more than an obligation, I might wait forever. Fueled by a mix of hurt and determination, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. I wasn't going to be a secondary character in anyone's story, not even my own. I packed a bag, wrote a note to my grandparents, and took the first bus to Aunt Lucy's house, seeking the acceptance and love I was starved of, a place where I could be primary, seen, and valued. The bus ride to Aunt Lucy's was the longest 2 hours of my life, every mile stretching out as I wrestled with a mix of fear, relief, and uncertainty. I stared out the window, watching the landscape blur, my thoughts racing as fast as the scenery passed. The decision to leave hadn't been easy, but the stifling feeling of being an afterthought in my parents' lives had grown unbearable. I needed a change, a place where I could be seen as more than just a complication in someone else's family portrait. Aunt Lucy lived in a small town that always felt a world away from the city's chaos where my parents resided. Her home was a cozy 2-story house surrounded by a well-tended garden that bloomed with colors most of the year. The familiarity of it brought a comforting rush of nostalgia. This was a place of many summer visits where I had always felt welcome and loved. As I stepped off the bus, the cool air of early evening brushed against my face, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from Aunt Lucy's garden. I dragged my suitcase behind me, its wheels thumping rhythmically against the pavement, a staccato beat to the turmoil inside me. Aunt Lucy was waiting at the door as I approached, her expression a mixture of concern and surprise. She didn't say anything at first, just opened her arms wide. The hug she gave me was tight and warm, a silent reassurance that I had made the right decision. "What's going on, honey?" Aunt Lucy's voice was gentle, inviting me to open up about everything. "I can't do it anymore, Aunt Lucy," I said, my voice breaking. "I just feel invisible there, like I'm just a guest in their lives, not a daughter." We sat down in her kitchen, a pot of tea between us, as I poured out everything, the neglect, the loneliness, the feeling of being perpetually out of place. Aunt Lucy listened, her brows knitting together in concern with every word I said. "You're not a guest, my dear," she said firmly. "You're family, and you always have a home here with me." The decision to stay with Aunt Lucy wasn't made in haste. It was the result of years of accumulated neglect and the cold realization that my parents, absorbed in their new lives, might never see me as more than an obligation. As we talked, Aunt Lucy didn't just offer me a room, she offered me a chance to reset my life on my own terms. "Can I stay here at least for a while?" I asked. "Of course you can stay as long as you need," she replied. "We'll figure out the details later." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Aunt Lucy helped me enroll in the local high school, and we visited the town hall to formalize my living situation with her. Despite the chaos, there was a growing sense of stability and support that I hadn't felt in years, but the true test came when it was time to confront my parents about my decision. Aunt Lucy stood by me as I called them, her presence a calming force. "What's this about you staying with Lucy? Is this some kind of teenage rebellion?" my father asked, his voice a mix of confusion and irritation. It stung, but I was prepared. "It's not rebellion, Dad, it's survival. I don't feel like part of your family anymore. I need to change." The conversation was difficult, filled with pauses and strained justifications. My mother cried, and my father argued. But I held firm. bolstered by Aunt Lucy's quiet strength beside me. "But we're your parents. We love you." "You can't just decide to live somewhere else," my mother said. "I can, and I have," I replied. "I need to be somewhere I feel wanted and valued." The call ended with a heavy silence, a clear divide between my old life and the new path I was forging. In the days that followed, the reality of my decision settled in. I was officially living with Aunt Lucy, attending a new school, and slowly rebuilding my sense of self-worth. School was a fresh start. I made friends who knew nothing of my family drama, who accepted me for who I was, not who my parents were. My grades improved as I found myself able to concentrate without the constant emotional turmoil that had clouded my mind before. Aunt Lucy encouraged my writing, pushing me to submit stories to local competitions and magazines. With each published piece, my confidence grew. Writing became more than a hobby, it was a lifeline, a way to process my emotions and reclaim my voice. As months stretched into a full year, I found myself growing more resilient and anchored with each passing day. Living with Aunt Lucy wove a new thread of stability into my life, our connection deepening through quiet evenings over home-cooked dinners, leisurely strolls through her vibrant garden, and heartfelt talks that spanned dreams, love, and the intricacies of existence. One twilight, as we sat sipping tea, she looked at me with warmth. "You're thriving, my dear," she said softly. "I'm so proud of the strength and grace you're showing." Her words were a lifeline, soothing the ache left by my parents' infrequent, fleeting attempts to reconnect. Their calls, once a rare tether to my old life, grew even scarcer, each one brief and heavy with unspoken distance, as if the miles between us had hardened into an invisible wall. Yet, in Aunt Lucy's home, I was no longer an afterthought. Her unwavering support filled the gaps my parents left, nurturing my confidence. I began to see myself not as the overlooked daughter, but as someone capable of shaping her own future, grounded in a love that asked for nothing but my happiness. Living with Aunt Lucy wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a complete transformation of my daily life and mental landscape. The first few months were a mix of adjustment and discovery as I navigated the new dynamics of my life, in a small town where everyone seemed to know each other. Aunt Lucy's house, with its welcoming warmth and walls lined with photographs of happy memories, became my sanctuary. Aunt Lucy had always been the family matriarch, the one everyone relied on during tough times. Her ability to listen without judgment and her unwavering support gave me the courage to open up about my feelings and the challenges I faced. She encouraged me to explore my interests, particularly my writing, which had always been a private escape for me. "You have a gift, you know," she said one day. "Your words, they have power, why not share them with the world?" Aunt Lucy's unwavering encouragement inspired me to join the literary club at my new school, where I connected with peers who shared my fervor for crafting stories. Guided by her support, I began assembling a portfolio, eagerly submitting my work to student magazines and local presses. The moment I saw my name in print, a wave of exhilaration coursed through me, a powerful affirmation that my voice held weight. School transformed into a sanctuary where I could shine, unburdened by the shadows of my family's turmoil. I forged genuine friendships with those who valued me for myself, not the chaos that once clung to me like a persistent echo. My academic performance soared as I could finally focus, free from the constant strain of seeking my parents' elusive attention. "Your writing has a rare authenticity and depth," my literary club advisor remarked. "You have the potential to leave a mark in the literary world." While their praise fueled my ambition, it was Aunt Lucy's steadfast belief in me that truly propelled me forward. She created a cozy writing nook in the corner of her living room, complete with a sturdy desk, a plush chair, and shelves brimming with books, from timeless classics to modern novels. This tranquil space became my refuge, a sacred corner where I could pour my thoughts onto paper, reflect deeply, and dream boundlessly of the stories I would tell. As months turned into years, my portfolio of writings grew. I experimented with different genres and styles, from poignant short stories to compelling essays on human nature and personal identity. My writing started to gain attention beyond the local community, with invitations to participate in regional workshops and conferences. "See what you can achieve when you believe in yourself?" Aunt Lucy said, her eyes shining with pride. "I'm just so proud of you." But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The emotional scars from my past with my parents sometimes resurfaced, especially during holidays or family gatherings when their absence was more pronounced. I struggled with feelings of abandonment and self-doubt, wondering if I had been too harsh in cutting them off. During one particularly low moment, Aunt Lucy found me staring at a blank page, the cursor blinking mockingly on the screen. "What's wrong, dear?" she asked. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice leaving them," I admitted. "Starting over. Was it too much?" Aunt Lucy's voice was steady and reassuring. "You did what you needed to do for your own health and happiness. That's not selfish, it's necessary. And look at how much you've grown." Her words were a balm to my troubled mind. She taught me that it was okay to put my own well-being first, that my feelings were valid and needed to be respected, even if that meant distancing myself from those who couldn't provide the support I needed. I leaned into my writing even more, using it as a tool to work through my emotions and to connect with others who might be going through similar experiences. My blog, which started as a small personal project, began to attract a wider audience. People from around the world reached out to share their stories with me, telling me how my words had touched their lives or given them the courage to make changes for their own well-being. One comment on my blog read, "Thank you for sharing your story. It's like you took the words right out of my heart. You've inspired me to seek happiness too." This connection with my readers fueled my passion and reaffirmed my decision to pursue a career in writing. It wasn't just about crafting stories, it was about making an impact, about weaving my personal truths into narratives that could resonate with others. As I approached the end of my high school career, the prospect of college loomed on the horizon. I applied to several programs, each step forward a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. When the acceptance letters started to arrive, each one felt like a confirmation of my new path, of the life I had chosen to build away from the shadow of my parents' neglect. The night before my high school graduation, Aunt Lucy and I sat on the porch, looking out at the stars. It was a clear night, the sky a tapestry of twinkling lights. "You're going to do great things, my dear," Aunt Lucy said. "No matter where you go or what you do, remember that you are loved, you are seen, and you are capable of incredible things." "Thank you, Aunt Lucy," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "For everything. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." Her smile was soft, proud. "You did the hard work, my dear. I just provided the space for you to flourish." As I prepared to step into the next chapter of my life, I carried with me the lessons I had learned from Aunt Lucy, to value myself, to seek out environments where I could thrive, and to never underestimate the power of a well-told story. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to see where my words would take me next.